Our next panel is to talk about inside the mind of an attacker, learning how to better anticipate the threat. Will you please welcome to the stage from Revelstoke, Bob Kruse, from Tenable, Jennifer Cox, from Checkpoint, Deryck Mitchelson, and from GetVisibility, Anthony Lyons, ladies and gentlemen. How are you, sir?
Bob Kruse.
Good to see you, Bob. Thank you. Hello, Jennifer. How are you? Lovely to meet you. Good man. Thanks, Anthony. Good stuff. Good to see you again. How are you? Okay, so we might begin with just quick introductions, if we may. Bob, tell us a little, 30 seconds or so about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Bob Kruse. I'm CEO and co-founder of Revelstoke. We are a next-generation security orchestration and automation and response platform. It's a pleasure to be here. It's my third time in Dublin in the last 6 months, and it's only gets better every time.
Excellent, good to hear. Jennifer, tell us about your role in Tenable, please.
So my name is Jennifer Cox. I've worked in Tenable for 7 years last month. I'm a security engineering manager. Currently, I also am the head of communications for Cyber Women Ireland too, and do the two of them side by side as such. So I'm working in tech now for 17 years and cyber for 7.
Okay, very good. Deryck.
I'm the field CISO for Checkpoint. I've only been at Checkpoint for 13 months, so quite new into Checkpoint, but I've done lots of big roles, mainly CIO roles in healthcare, oil and gas, media, so it's the first time I've worked for a vendor. The rest have all been as a consumer.
Okay, so you've poacher turned gamekeeper, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, excellent, very good. And Anthony, tell us your role in GetVisibility.
Yeah, I'm Anthony Lyons. I'm the Chief Customer Officer with GetVisibility. We're an AI-enabled data classification company, and yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, very good. I'm going to begin with you if I can, Anthony, because we saw Edward and his abilities there, right? Yeah. If we can call them that. Your car will be fine. Don't worry about it. He has a nice car himself. What's the current profile of the threat actor? I mean, we talked about the teenager in the hoodie, but you know, we then realized it's a lot more sophisticated than that. These are actual businesses. But that still doesn't codify what a threat actor is. So what is the threat actor?
Exactly, and we've heard a lot of talk about, like, you know, the guys in the hoodies, the script kiddies, you know, the people who are external threats, you know. And to use a little bit of a squishy analogy, you know, if you're pointing your finger out, you always have 3 fingers pointing back at you. So if we're saying that the threat is out there, you got to remember that there's also 3 fingers pointing back at you, and there's a threat on the inside too. So let's not forget about the inside of the threat, and it comes back again to another topic that everybody's been talking about is people. You know, people who create content and create code and create the value to the business, they feel ownership of that, and they feel that they can potentially take it when they're leaving, or they can give it to whoever they want.
Particularly if they get annoyed. Absolutely. If you annoy somebody, they turn from being an ally to an enemy. I mean, it does happen from time to time, and think of Jurassic Park, for example, as a classic Hollywood example where things go wrong. So you need to look as much inside as you do out, do you?
Absolutely, and like some of the basic hygiene of understanding, like, who has access to your data. You know, like, there's no, you can red team all you like, but if your engineering team have access to your HR data and they can access the salaries of all of your employees, you know, that's a big threat. Or if your account team or somebody new in your account team could potentially take all of your commercial contacts and take them away very, very easily, it's a huge threat.
After the High Court you go. Deryck, if I can talk to you, you've seen those threats. You mentioned the different sectors that you're in, and the threats that were there previously, but then we have emerging threats and we have new threats. So in your opinion, what are the emerging threats that organizations are likely to face in the next year or so?
Some of them will be the same as current threats, so I think it will be an escalation of current threats. There's a bit of a game changer going on around ransomware at the moment. Ransomware, and because there's a lot less organizations paying the ransom, ransomware is very much changing to exfiltrating the data rather than encrypting the data. It's getting in, getting out very quickly, and it's actually then being able to actually use that data either to blackmail, to threat, to actually release that data. So that's very much the pivots happening within ransomware. We're going to see much more disruption. So we're already starting to see that much more DDoS backed by artificial intelligence, machine learning. These threat actors we've talked about, they're exceptionally clever people. They're sophisticated. They're not script kiddies. They're sitting in organizations. They've got access to all the best tools. So we need to be getting into an offensive mode than a defensive mode is where I think You know, you need to get that offensive mindset, which is, you know, what can we do to actually prevent this, rather than actually what we're going to do when we actually
When it goes
get
wrong.
breached.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do we employ those tools, though? I mean, obviously, we have white hat hackers who are helping us. You've got all your security levels in place. But how do we try to even just keep up with those new threats as they emerge?
So I think there's a few things you can do. First of all, I'll ask everyone here to ask more of your vendors. That's where I would start. You know, there's far too many vulnerabilities in the vendor products you've got out there you're buying. You know, if you're buying products and the products are vulnerable, you've actually brought vulnerabilities into your network. So speak to them to say, what are they doing around it? You're still getting a lot of vulnerabilities, both in clouds and remote access gateways, that third-party stuff. There's good technology out there. Definitely you need to be looking into technology that sits in that AI space, because the only way of combating the type of AI attacks you're getting is having technology in there that can react that quickly. The humans can't react that quick. Humans are great at 2 in the morning when you phone them up to say, what's the plan, what's the playbook, what do we do now? But you need to marry that same level of AI preventative technology along with what the attackers have got.
One of the challenges, Jenny, would be how do you put a team in place that can respond to those threats and have diversity with a big D as opposed to a small d. And you've got people in there who understand both the threat to the business, the impact it has on perhaps your clients and your data, but also the outcome on the far side as well if things go wrong. So it's about making sure that it's not just a kind of a single, we sit in a cybersecurity hut and get called out when we're needed. It's more of a diverse team is needed, isn't it?
Absolutely. And in the same way that we shouldn't assume that all hackers are teenage white men, you know, we shouldn't make our teams just full of one kind of person. And that's not just saying that all teams must have a woman and must have a, you know, you don't tick all the boxes either, but there should be enough variety within the teams that you allow them to think outside of the box. So I was thinking about this last night, and I'll show my age, but how many people in the room would remember the A-Team?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
okay,
by
so
the way,
I'm
Chris,
not
I don't
alone.
know if Chris is still here. He threw out a Ferris Bueller reference earlier on that none of you responded to. I mean, what's wrong with you? I mean, I did Jurassic Park, and now
The A-Team, though.
we've got the A-Team.
Yes,
we're
the original
living in
A-Team.
the 80s. Anyway, go on.
So with the A-Team, you've got 4 very different personalities. I mean, it's really tempting to fill your team with 4 Hannibals. You know, they're the brains of the operation, and they're coming up with all of these solutions to the problems. But if you don't have the other 3 characters, then you're not actually going to come at it with a holistic approach. So your team, whoever it is, we all want to get the fresh out of college. They've done all the coding. They're able to hack. They've done all of the possible training they can do. They're qualified up to the eyeballs, but we're not always considering somebody who's returned to work from a different career and now they've requalified in cybersecurity, or maybe they've worked in an entirely different career altogether. You know, I've seen situations, I laugh, when I got married, we had dinner. We rented a restaurant, there was 40 people at it, and one of the things that came up was what we were going to eat. My husband's into food, the chef obviously is into food, and they had this super fancy menu that they did out, and I said, you need to do plain chicken. My family will only eat plain chicken. Yeah. So of the 40 people that were going to be at dinner, 25 of them were my family, and he said, there's no way they're all going to eat plain chicken. So begrudgingly, they bought in the chicken, and on the day, 26 people ate plain chicken.
Right.
And I said,
one went with the herd.
Exactly. So my point there is that whilst it's tempting to go with the crowd and want to do the right thing and do the new thing and do the fancy thing and have all of the best of everything, sometimes you've got to just listen to the person who's the expert in that situation. And it could be that you're protecting yourself against attacks from other countries, so you need to think about how they work versus how you do, or from other communities, or for other purposes that they're attacking. And if you have a diverse team that can think about things in a broad and wide way, then that's the best way to protect yourself.
There is no homogenous attacker, so
Exactly.
therefore your team shouldn't be homogenous as well.
Exactly.
Bob, from your side of it, one of the things we learned about in the last presentation was the importance of testing systems and sending people in to see, well, where is the vulnerability? I mean, the thing in Poland was absolutely hilarious. It walked in through the back door. But other than that, it's about putting the systems to the test. How important is it to do that in a controlled environment? Number one, very controlled, but also you will inherently have people, and I know IT people, that go, well, I know I'm terrified it'll happen, but I think we're all right. How important is it to prove them wrong occasionally?
Well, I would quote Clausewitz, no good plan survives contact with the enemy, right? So that typically turns everything on its ear. But I would say, starting from the beginning of your question, it is all about people, and there aren't enough of them to hire. So there's 2 to 4 million open cybersecurity jobs, depending on which report you find. So I would say that finding quality people and enough of them and holding on to them for as long as you can is probably the most critical thing. But certainly, practicing your tabletop exercises and things like that is extremely important in building that muscle memory to where when things go bad, really bad, at 2 a.m. or even 4 a.m., that you know exactly what to do and how to do it and who's going to do it, and then also make a plan for things to fail.
When you are preparing that plan, what's the main motivation in getting the team to come along with you? Is it, like the old thing would be...
Pizza.
Pizza, yeah, clearly. Spend $48 on fucking pizza. But is it your job's going to be under threat if this goes wrong, or is it the business is under threat if this goes wrong? How do you motivate somebody who's trying to do their best to just do that little bit extra to make sure the system is robust?
I don't think threatening to lose their job or lose their pizza is a good way to do it. But I would say, the gamification is a really powerful thing today, and probably always has been. But understand the attacker and wanting to beat them is extremely important, because this is a great business for folks, white hats, black hats, trying to figure out what the motivations, the attribution, and all that good stuff. And so, for me, channeling my inner Mr. T, A-team.
Yeah. Do you not like planes? The younger people are going, I have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, or Murtaugh, right? Murtaugh, right?
Was it Murtaugh? Yeah, was he who was afraid of the planes? Was it Mr. T? Was it Murtaugh? Mr. T was afraid of the planes, yeah. Anyway, we digress. Carry on.
Yeah. No, I would say the idea of winning the battle, the capture the flag mentality and that sort of thing. So, maybe give this person a plaque or something. And I know money motivates and all that good stuff, but it is pretty cool to kind of win.
Yeah, so. And it is effectively, it's a form of role-playing, Anthony, in more ways than one. When you're looking at it then, so if you have, let's go back to the insider threat idea that you were talking about. So if that person wants to rob the financial information, the wages information, but then they're really annoyed, and they take the contacts book, and then they're really annoyed, and then they take the patented products that haven't hit the patent office yet. Should they have access to all of that information, or is it part of what you do when you're building your threat matrix that you compartmentalize?
Yeah, it's such a huge question. It's such a big elephant to eat. You have to understand your data security posture, and basically have a plan around, okay, who has access to what, and one of the big things is understanding what is actually on your data. Like, what data do you have? What's important? What's private? What's public? You need to classify all of that data.
But that's GetVisibility's thing, isn't it? Because you actually end up having so much data you don't know what you have.
Exactly, and I think there is an admission that we heard earlier on that 9 out of 10 times, or people just don't know what they have. And imagine your 2 a.m. phone call again, and it's okay. What was taken? Well, we know there's a petabyte of data gone.
Yeah, that's
okay,
my 99 times out of 10 that I said earlier. Yeah.
So what's gone? It's really difficult to know without understanding your data, and that's where it comes in.
To flesh that out, Deryck, if I can. Sometimes organizations are really bad at sharing internally, particularly if it might expose them to others as being not as good as they should be. When it comes to sharing information on cybersecurity, it doesn't matter. You shouldn't have anyone trying to protect their own little kingdom. You should be sharing across the organization, shouldn't you?
I think we need to be much more transparent and share a lot more. As a community, I think we lawyer up too often as well. So I think sharing within organizations is important. It needs to share right up to the board. If the CISO doesn't sit on the board, then the CISO needs to find a way of sharing up to the board. That's critical. So boards understand this is what we're talking about, this is what we're risk. We need to share a lot more around incidents when we've actually had an incident as to what it was. I can probably think of only about 2 cyber incidents in the last 3-4 years that I would call complex. The rest have all been preventable.
Yeah.
Now, I would go further in saying they've actually all been easily preventable, including HSE. Very easable. So, we're not trying to have blame, but at the end of the day, somebody somewhere could have done better. And I think if you communicate what the risks are, some of the weaknesses, if you if you then communicate to others, when we had a big breach across in Scotland and I was in the NHS, we had a breach with our environmental protection agency called SEPA. And what we did is I brought the chief executive of SEPA in to meet the 22 chief executives of NHS Scotland. Now, they were sitting there thinking, we're doing a pretty good job. We've got Cyber Essentials and Plus, and we get audited for national critical infrastructure, so we were good. It changed the mindset when you brought someone senior in that said, I was sitting on the 24th of December, and I got a phone call on my mobile that said, we had no longer access to any systems, email, Teams, SharePoint, files. We'd lost our disaster recovery plans. And that's what he brought into the NHS, saying, you might think you're sitting there and you're prepared. One, it will happen to you. And two, you're never prepared. And the question I would always ask is, so can you be doing more now? And if internally you think, I can be doing a lot more now than I think you should be doing, but definitely we've got to start sharing an awful lot more because it's not complex.
There was a panel at this event last year. There was somebody from the aviation sector taking part in it, and they talked about in aviation they have a zero fault reporting system whereby if something goes wrong in an aircraft, you report it and you don't get into trouble necessarily. You're saying that I had to do a missed approach because I went too low, and as a result the plane had to go around and I burnt X amount of fuel, and that pilot doesn't get into trouble. But it means that everybody reports in and you have better data. That's what we need, really, when it comes to cybersecurity, isn't it? That looked a bit dodgy. We shut that down, but that means that we have a vulnerability there. And if I have that vulnerability in my department, you have it in yours as well. Is that what you're talking about?
It absolutely is. You know, it's not a blame game. It's a learning game. It's an improving. I had that in oil and gas. I had a cloud environment that got compromised. A developer opened some ports, so it was DevOps with all the keys. We came in on a Monday morning. It had been compromised. Now, these things happen. Unfortunately, the sad thing for me was it took us 2 days to actually find out what had happened. And it took 2 days of speaking to the teams to try and work out who'd actually made the mistake. Mm-hmm. And because, you know, there wasn't a blame culture, but somebody somewhere was scared that rather than being open and honest and upfront to say, I did this and this is how we move forward and learn from it, it was, you know, we're not going to own up to say we were the ones that actually caused hundreds of thousands of pounds of cost and damage to our development.
It's back to pointing the finger at whoever in Beaumont Hospital opened the phishing email that resulted in the HSE hack. Jennifer, can we protect everything, though? I mean, like, ultimately, is that a fool's errand, thinking that we can protect everything with so many threat actors pushing and looking for little tiny cracks that they can get into?
Absolutely, and tempting is to give you just the short answer of no. But yeah, it's not possible to protect everything. And I think even if you power everything down, you still have humans that can be the problem. And even if you remove all the humans, then the technology still can create its own problems. Not as many as humans do, but it's all still compromisable as such. I think all you can do is be open and honest and transparent. And I always preach transparency. And I have worked in environments where, you know, it was more than a slap on the wrist if you did anything wrong when you're maintaining systems. And it was absolutely the wrong way to work, because for days, weeks, months, people would not say a word about what it was that they knew had gone wrong. And that's the biggest risk of all. There needs to be an understanding, like I say, at C-level and board level, about the reality of the volume of information that these teams need to know about. Never mind what they do with that information then when they get it. But when you're trying to, like, I've worked with many companies and many businesses understanding their attack surface. And how many I've spoken to over time that because of budget, they'll look after their servers, or they'll only focus on what they know about, like laptops, servers, reducing the access to USB ports.
The words they know.
Yeah. But they're not thinking about any other devices that, you know, if you walk around, even your home, there's devices that are flickering and plugged in all over the place that they're absolutely not thinking about, that are on their network, that are
I really want to be hacked through my robot lawnmower. I've mentioned it on a number of previous Zero Day Con events. I really want to be hacked. If I'm going to be hacked through anything, I want it to be the lawnmower.
It would be interesting.
It would be fun. I mean, we could put it on a slide. It'd be good. Bob, if I don't, that was not that. I'm warning you, Edward, do not do it. Finishing up, Bob, if I can, with you. You talk about the kind of the battle of wills between the good guys and the bad guys, the people coming in, and using that as a motivational factor. One of the key things that teams would need to understand is, well, what's the motivation of the bad guy? Because we would have always continually said, he's in it to make money. He's in it to turn a book and to go out and sell data or whatever. Is that the pure motivation?
No.
What's the motivation?
Well, in the case of my children, it's to expand their screen time or get access to my Amazon account. But I would say the motivation is really prepositioning for more of IP exfiltration, as well as nation state, in terms of industrial espionage as well. And I think that in a lot of cases, ransomware, what appears to be financially motivated is obfuscation for something much larger. And again, it's prepositioning for a larger attack. And also, they're QA testing their software just like anybody else would. Yeah. They're using automation, they're QA testing, and they're very smart people. And they're actually, sometimes they just want to win and prove that they can take somebody down so they can recruit talent. Because again, there's not enough people to hire, even for the bad actors. Yeah. So it's a talent war.
So we cannot point our fingers, to use your analogy, we can't point our fingers and go, it is the Russians, or it is the...
That's a cop-out in a way.
Yeah, it is like,
because, what are they going to defend themselves somehow? Or, you can't prove yourself either way. But, no, it's really, it's pervasive. Ransomware as a service is coming on board right now. But a lot of it's not just for financial gain. It's industrial espionage, IP exploitation.
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Well, there you go.
Which we hope doesn't win the Oscar someday.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be the Banshees. It's been wonderful to talk you through everything that we've spoken about on stage. Would you please thank our panel, Bob Kruse, Jennifer Cox, Deryck Mitchelson, and Anthony Lyons. We'll leave you go that way, folks. Thank you very much.